I had everything. I lost some of my hearing in my right ear for a while. I lost my ability to read for a couple of years. I lost feeling in my left leg to my knee. I couldn't walk at first. I couldn't write my name for a very long time.
Sharon Stone was instantly elevated to the status of Hollywood's most iconic sex symbol after that notorious leg crossing incident. But then, a few years down the road, she had a brain bleed that lasted 9 days and gave her a survival rate of less than 1%. This is a true miracle. She managed to stay alive, but what a devastating loss that was for her. Her mobility, her recollection. After divorcing her, her husband remarried and battled for custody of their kid. The entertainment industry ignored her and made fun of her. How did Sharon Stone get back up after falling from her lofty popularity to her lowest point of isolation? No matter how you feel about this narrative, you will be moved to tears. The little hamlet of Meadville, Pennsylvania, where Sharon Stone was born on March 10, 1958, was centered around industries and seemingly endless fields. Dorothy Stone was a housewife and accountant, and her father, Joseph, was a factory laborer. She was the second of 4 siblings. The family lived in a modest home. Even though they lacked financial resources, it was never an issue. Sharon had always been unique, even as a little girl. She was able to walk and talk before she turned 1. Her extraordinary intelligence was soon acknowledged by others in her vicinity. She was a genuine genius with an IQ of 154. However, her brilliant ideas only served to further isolate her. Not only was she the most intelligent student in her class, but her classmates also thought she was the most peculiar. She was mocked by her friends for being an avid reader. Just a strange guy. The sensation of being an outsider persisted even after Sharon came to terms with her seclusion. Even if everyone else avoided her, the reality within her house was even worse. Because of a horrible secret she couldn't tell anybody, Sharon was terrified for a long time. Because her grandpa had harmed her, she had a difficult, traumatic, and anxious upbringing. She had to pretend it never occurred and bury the memories deep into her mind if she wanted to live. Unfortunately, that kind of suffering never goes away. Its only activity is to lay dormant till the appropriate time comes. After a significant period of time had passed, the traumatic memories resurfaced during treatment sessions. Sharon originally exposed this terrifying reality in her novel, The Beauty of Living Twice. In addition to physical violence, she had also faced threats. Her grandpa threatened to have her executed if she dared to speak out. She was a youngster who had no one to turn to for help and nowhere to run. Attempting to stay alive was the daily struggle. A battle against horror rages nightly. An unforeseen event occurred when Sharon's grandma responded to her grandfather's death. She slammed the door behind her and had Sharon and her sister stand over his corpse. No tears, no explanation. Although the agony continued after then, the nightmare ended at that time. Her own father made the wounds from her upbringing much deeper. Joseph Stone was a very disciplined and hard-nosed parent who frequently resorted to severe punishments while dealing with his children. But by the time Sharon was 14 years old, she had had enough. She remained firm when he screamed at her one day. Gazed intently into his eyes and inquired, "Do you require another strike to experience a sense of masculinity?" The impact of the words was like a shock to him. Once Joseph Stone froze, he sobbed uncontrollably. For Sharon, seeing her father so weak was a first and last. After that incident, he stopped physically abusing his children. Another traumatic event from her youth also followed her. Despite her exceptional academic performance, she was the target of peers' mockery at school. No one was sincere about wanting to be her buddy. Traditional notions of beauty were at odds with her appearance. Others saw her as the unattractive underdog. Next, destiny bestowed yet another seal. An incident with far-reaching consequences. Sharon was flung off her horse at the age of 14 when the terrified animal sprang forward and became entangled in a clothesline. She fell to the floor in a heap, with a serious damage to the neck. Years of agony served as a continual sobering reminder of how precarious life may be. Sharon persevered through her hardships and achieved academic greatness. Her early graduation from high school at the age of 15 was rewarded with a scholarship to Edinburgh University. Still, she knew she didn't fit in with the university community the second she stepped foot there. It seemed as if she had no choice but to stay where she was. Leaving Meadville was the only way for Sharon Stone to make a difference in her life, she realized. However, chances don't materialize out of nowhere. They will appear when you are ready to capture them. A beauty competition was the catalyst for her initial epiphany. Sharon took the recommendation of her loved ones and joined a local pageant, even though she had never considered herself one. Surprisingly, she emerged victorious, despite her low expectations. That sash wasn't only a title. It served as her exit from the sleepy village. Not long after that, she got a job offer to model in NYC. The fashion industry was a harsh place, as Sharon soon learned. Despite her magazine appearances and contract with Ford Modeling Agency, she was unhappy in her role. It was lifeless, standing for the camera in glitzy clothes without saying a word or showing any emotion. Being a model wasn't her only career goal. She desired more. She found her new calling in acting. However, Hollywood was none too pleased. Casting call after casting call came with more and more rejections. Some said she was plain ugly and didn't have the seductive charm of a leading lady. Sharon Stone was simply a small-town girl with sharp features, without the suppleness necessary to be a Hollywood beauty, according to the directors who were in charge at the time. However, she would discover her own method to demonstrate her worth if Hollywood was going to reject her because of it. In 1980, she got her big break in the film industry with a little part in the Woody Allen-directed Stardust Memories. Despite its brief presence, lack of lines, and insignificance, Sharon saw it as a significant milestone. She had finally entered the field she had always dreamed of working in. She kept pursuing possibilities in the years that followed, landing parts in films including Irreconcilable Differences, 1984, and Deadly Blessing, 1981. She stayed a forgettable celebrity despite starring with greater names in film. Basic Instinct had an unanticipated and profound impact on Sharon Stone's life in 1992. She had never been really considered a Hollywood star before that. She had only been a middle-tier actor. Everything shifted, though, when she portrayed the enigmatic, alluring, and crafty Catherine Trammell. Without warning, Sharon Stone rose from obscurity to become a sex icon all across the world. A surprising story, surprise, or incredibly crisp speech weren't what made the moment that rocked the globe. It was the most divisive instance of a leg crossing in film history. With composure, Catherine Trammell faced a group of investigators in a crowded interrogation room as they sought to identify the perpetrator of a crime. She deftly sidestepped their inquiries, transforming the questioning into a nervous showdown of intellect, all while flashing a rebellious grin and intense, penetrating gaze. On the other hand, Sharon Stone's carefree leg lift and reversal was the scene that transcended the writing. Even though it was brief, the photo ignited a firestorm in Hollywood. One of the most halted scenes in cinematic history, the sequence was repeated indefinitely. Subsequently, a Veet survey deemed it the most alluring screen instance of leg crossing. Sharon Stone's unwitting creation of an image caused her fame to soar suddenly, rather than her performance. Sharon Stone said after the film's release that she had been tricked into recording the sequence. Director Paul Verhoeven had requested that she remove her panties before filming began, she recalled, since the white cloth reflected the light on camera in an odd way. He reassured her that there would be no explicit content and that all that would be seen was a faint reflection of light. Sharon had faith in the director. However, she was taken aback by the test screening. Far more had been shown to her by the scene than she had been taught to believe. After slapping Paul Verhoeven in the face at the screening, she felt deceived and immediately contacted her lawyer to request the sequence be deleted. However, that did not take place. The director adamantly maintained that the shot had been authorized per the contract, and no changes could be made to the picture. After the fact, Paul Verhoeven disputed everything, saying that Sharon Stone was well aware of what was going on while filming. But the reality? The truth will only be known by those directly engaged. Whether Sharon had any say in the matter or not, that incident was the turning point in her career and the black hole from which she would never fully recover. Actress Sharon Stone achieved a global superstar by acting on her gut. However, her aspirations for stardom were dashed. Hollywood, she quickly learned, only saw her in one light, as a sex symbol. Sharon was determined to make her own way in the industry if she ever wanted to be taken seriously as an actor. She started looking for parts that required more than simply charm, ones with more complexity. The 1995 picture Casino was the next in line, and it was the one that garnered her first Oscar nomination. The captivating and sad Ginger McKenna, played by Sharon in Casino, was a lady of great complexity. Emotional complexity, psychological richness, and genuine acting abilities were necessary for this part, rather than just good looks. Sharon Stone was finally recognized by Hollywood for more than her good looks. Her gift was genuine. However, she needed more than just one film to completely liberate herself from her image. In Lovelace, 2013, she played the polar opposite of Catherine Trammell, a harsh, unfeeling mother of Linda Lovelace, marking a major turning point in her career. The glitzy outfits and alluring looks have long since disappeared. Sharon Stone seemed like a completely different person when she was on screen, severe, icy, and unfeeling. This was her attempt to demonstrate her versatility. In television, she persisted in pushing herself to new limits. Playing a stern and unyielding prosecutor on Law and Order allowed her to escape the alluring image that had dogged her for so long. Sharon Stone's marriage was a major life event that occurred at the same time as her career was taking off. The famous television producer Michael Greenberg was her husband. They tied the knot on August 18, 1984. While filming The Vegas Strip War, in which Sharon featured and Greenberg served as producer, the two met. Their romance blossomed rapidly, and they made the decision to get married shortly after. Two individuals with similar goals and careers appeared like the ideal match at first. But the glitz and glamour of Hollywood altered the course of events. They broke up on January 20, 1987, after being together for 3 years. The dissolution of their marriage took 3 years longer than expected. Sharon Stone's fast-rising career led many to believe that she was hesitant to commit to married life, but the precise cause for their split was never made public. Michael Greenberg was a renowned producer who brought success to shows like Stargate SG-1 and MacGyver. The disjuncture between their occupations may have become wider, too, as Sharon's popularity grew in Hollywood. There were rumblings that Sharon put her career goals before of her marriage, but she was determined to seize any opportunity that came her way. After his divorce, Greenberg continued his professional and personal life, and he dated Nikki Smook, with whom he had 2 children. As all this was happening, Sharon kept on her own course, which was fraught with unanticipated difficulties. As Sharon Stone's natural talent propelled her to stardom in 1992, she began dating country music legend Dwight Yoakam. The marriage of a stunning Hollywood actress with a rough-and-tumble Western guitarist caused quite a stir in the media. Sharon wore a sophisticated blue velvet ensemble and Dwight, as one would expect, wearing his trademark cowboy hat for the 1992 Academy Awards, creating an unforgettable sight as a pair. Their relationship swiftly fell apart, though, and it became one of Sharon Stone's greatest regrets behind all the glitter. Although the initial attraction between Sharon and Dwight remains a mystery, rumors have it that their romance quickly devolved into a nightmare. The rumors about Sharon's domineering and jealous nature made Dwight feel stifled. Despite the fact that they never addressed the rumors publicly, the reality remained. In spite of the tension, they parted ways without ever having shown one another any regard. Sharon Stone made no effort to conceal her contempt for the relationship when thinking on it years later. The decision to date Dwight, she once said, was the worst one she had ever made. And it wasn't even the most startling thing she said. On a separate occasion, she made a scathing comment in response to a question on her relationship with Dwight. "I felt like I was eating a mud sandwich after kissing Dwight." There was more to this than meets the eye. In an interview with the Orlando Sentinel in 1995, it was made official. Sharon wasted little time answering the question of whether or not she had really likened Dwight's kiss to a dirty sandwich. Just by responding in that way, we can see how much she regretted the connection. Dwight Yoakam, on the other hand, opted to keep mum. He was emotionally clumsy after breaking off a 5-year relationship, he said in an interview with the Los Angeles Times, when questioned about Sharon. "We went on a date." A brief, dispassionate response. Feelings and explanations absent. as if the time they spent together hadn't been significant. One thing was evident from their emotions, even if they didn't talk about the real reasons for their breakup. Since they both wished to put this chapter in the past, Sharon Stone went on with her life as a single woman, even trying to find love on Bumble in her later years. At the same time, Dwight Yoakam felt secure. After dating for 10 years, he finally tied the knot with photojournalist Emily Joyce in 2020. Sharon Stone and Dwight Yoakam have obviously moved on from that situation. It appears this wasn't your average breakup, though, based on their reactions to the romance's demise, particularly Sharon's scathing comments. This was a period in her life that she really regretted. Unfortunately, Sharon Stone would go on to have other relationships that were more painful than joyful. After breaking up with Dwight Yoakam, Sharon Stone wasted little time becoming involved with William J. McDonald, a film producer. Everything was different this time. They appeared to be prepared to take the next step toward marriage when they were engaged. The conclusion of this relationship was just as stormy as the beginning, even though it seemed like a more stable chapter in Sharon's romantic history. On the set of the 1993 picture Sliver, which had McDonald as a producer, Sharon and William first crossed paths. It wasn't how their romance bloomed that was problematic, but rather when it did. The marriage between William McDonald and Naomi Baca had lasted all of 5 months until they met Sharon. As a result, the relationship between William and Sharon became embroiled in controversy, prompting the question, was it genuine love or only an affair? William quickly secretly announced his connection with Sharon and left his wife for her. Not everyone was overjoyed when word of their engagement spread, McDonald's ex-wife included. A word was said by Naomi McDonald. Sharon Stone was referred to as a housewrecker by her instead. Naomi said angrily, "She's heartless and cruel," during an appearance with the tabloid show A Current Affair. Sharon Stone snatched my aspiration. My spouse was taken by her. Sharon was thrust into the spotlight as a result of her charges, which caused a media frenzy. In response to growing criticism, Sharon Stone's representative defended the actress, saying that she and McDonald had no romantic involvement prior to McDonald's divorce filing. Nevertheless, the justification failed to persuade. People had good reason to be suspicious because everything transpired so rapidly between McDonald's departure from his wife and his engagement to Sharon. However, maybe Sharon wasn't the sole one involved in this connection with ulterior purposes. A typical producer wouldn't do William McDonald justice. Fame had an impact on him, and he knew it. If he had been associated with the most famous Hollywood celebrity at the time, it may have helped his career. Or, if not that, get people talking. Was his love for Sharon genuine, or was he just using her celebrity status to boost his own profile? Although there was no clear evidence, one cannot help but wonder about the man's genuine motives when he abandons his wife after just 5 months of marriage to become engaged to a famous Hollywood actor. Their relationship didn't endure long, regardless of the reasons behind it. Even more contentious than their contentious engagement was the 1994 separation between Sharon and William, which occurred less than a year after they were engaged. Sharon Stone did more than just break off the engagement, she also sent the diamond back via FedEx. A chilling, unwavering action. Someone who seemed determined to wipe this chapter from her life clean, as if it were her last wish. No time was lost by the media in making money out of the drama. The manner in which Sharon returned the ring was interpreted as a strong declaration, demonstrating her lack of remorse. Speculation was rife in Hollywood tabloids. Had Sharon seen that she was being taken advantage of, or did she decide to leave after realizing this wasn't the love she had envisioned? Even when his association with Sharon Stone had faded, William J. McDonald persisted in his career in movies. Sharon, meanwhile, continued her quest for true love after ending yet another high-profile romance. The difficulties she had been experiencing in her love life, however, were far from finished. At the age of 40, Sharon Stone appeared to have achieved her every desire. Phil Bronstein, who had been the executive editor of the San Francisco Examiner and then the San Francisco Chronicle, had fallen head over heels for her, and she was already one of the most influential actresses in Hollywood history. Phil appeared to be Sharon's ideal match when they first crossed paths in the late 90s. He exuded the charisma of a powerful guy while being charming, wealthy, and clever. Whenever they were in public together, the two were instant media darlings, cementing their status as one of Hollywood's golden couples. They tied the knot in a spectacular ceremony reminiscent of a fairy tale on February 14, 1998. According to the tabloids, it was a fantasy romance, but for Sharon, it was the start of a new chapter, the happiness she had always desired for her family. Despite her glitzy exterior, she suffered physically and emotionally throughout her time with Bronstein. Tragically, Sharon's body failed her in her lifelong desire to have a biological child. She was unable to bring a pregnancy to term due to her autoimmune condition and endometriosis. She had 9 miscarriages throughout her life. There was a glimmer of optimism with each pregnancy, but it all ended in tragedy. The agony she endured was unbearable. I have watched it all go away, from the excitement of seeing the red lines on a pregnancy test to the restless evenings spent sobbing in quiet. With every setback, she clung to hope. Sharon and Phil made the decision to adopt a child not long ago. A gorgeous newborn boy with large, wide eyes named Ron Joseph Bronstein was brought into the world in the year 2000. He ended up being Sharon's one shining star throughout that period. It seems like Sharon Stone had finally found the happily ever after, a tiny but lovely family, a wealthy husband, and a boy she loved dearly. However, she couldn't cling to that joy for much longer due to the hand of fate. A seemingly innocuous placard was the starting point. Sharon Stone had a searing headache, like a hit to the skull, while on vacation in Milan, Italy, while attending a famous fashion show. It was as if an unseen power were squeezing her brain from the inside out, as a terrible pressure crept up her neck and into her skull. It was dismissed as a minor incident. Experiencing a headache, or maybe it's simply tension. The intense stage lights, or an overly packed schedule. But after that, details started to blur. She felt a tremor in the air as the sound of those around her faded. As she stumbled forward, she eventually gave way and collapsed in the midst of the runway. Everything in the room went into a tailspin. As members of the medical team hurried over to help, Sharon Stone remained paralyzed and unable to move or speak. The world grew black. The actual misery started a few days later when I returned to the United States. An abrupt and agonizing agony tore through her body like a bolt of lightning one night when she was at home. There was no buildup, no warning, just an unquenchable inferno within her brain that caused her to fall backwards off the couch, smash her skull on the table, and eventually drop to the floor. It was as if Zeus had struck her with a lightning bolt. As if her whole brain were being torn to shreds, every single nerve in her body wailed in excruciating pain. No sound could come out of her throat as she fought to breathe and yell for assistance. She awoke to the startling sight of whirling ceiling lights and hazy individuals racing all around her. As the wheels squealed on the floor, she lay on a stretcher and was rolled along a chilly hospital corridor. Nobody was informing her about what was going on. Nothing sprang to her mind. It was as if someone had erased her memories. There was a lot of disarray. A thick fog enveloped her thoughts, her films, the people she had known, were all broken into fragments she couldn't reassemble. A brain hemorrhage has been plaguing Sharon for the past 9 days. Blood trickled slowly into her brain, face, and spine throughout that period, bringing her closer to death with every passing second. No words could express the agony. Pain wasn't the only thing. Destruction, anguish, and internalized misery, that was all. The situation quickly became chaotic. As she watched, doctors argued amongst themselves. A flurry of nervous voices. Unfathomable dangers, brain surgery, and the prospect of having a portion of her skull removed were all mentioned. However, she had no idea if the procedure would be successful. Alongside her, there was a stranger who was also battling for his life. He then breathed his final breath as Sharon watched. The image remained etched in her mind like a haunting nightmare. She felt the weight of death on her shoulders and could see it hanging over her. Who knew? Maybe she was the next one. Her mother was the only idea that sprang to mind at that instant. Whispering into the phone, she informed her mother that she was experiencing a brain hemorrhage, using the last vestige of her dwindling voice. Her mother's response was a concise "I'm coming on the other end." "Bye, my dear." After the call ended, Sharon Stone realized she had reached the last stage of her life's journey. She felt the light pierce through the indescribable agony as her vision grew hazy. The light wasn't as cold and clinical as a hospital. The atmosphere was friendlier, brighter, and calmer. She felt a calming wave of relief, as if she were being guided to a different place. The agony subsided. A sense of calm was restored. But suddenly, she was halted. Within that ethereal light, a known figure materialized. Little Roan, her son-in-law. His innocent eyes met hers as he gazed at her. He was too little to comprehend what was going on, but he was old enough to realize how much he needed his mom. She was unable to depart. She would never abandon her son. Sharon Stone believed she had triumphed over death when she finally opened her eyes following the terrifying nightmare. However, she was oblivious to the fact that the true struggle was just getting started. As she departed from the hospital, she seemed so weak, pale, and underweight that she hardly recognized her reflection. Her body mass has decreased by 18%. Because it couldn't bear her weight, her right leg trailed after her. Even writing her own name became impossible for her because of how badly her hands shook. She became illiterate, stuttering and unable to regulate her own speech. She had almost no recollection of anything. It turned into a daily whirlwind of attempting to remember everything and then forgetting it all over again. She went looking for assistance, but she couldn't find any programs tailored to her specific situation. There was no treatment that could restore her normal gait. Unable to find a solution to her stuttering problem. No health insurance to pay for the extensive rehabilitation she would require. However, she remained determined. Sharon Stone retrained herself day by day. Reclaiming what had been stolen from her, she battled her own brain by learning to write her name from scratch and by speaking slowly and deliberately in front of a mirror. In her pursuit of mental stimulation, she sought advice from neurologists, fortifying each and every muscle and reaction, regardless of how little. Second by second, hour by hour, she battled for her own freedom. "You have been reborn into your own body," the Buddhist monk told her in an odd experience she recounted. She was plagued by that sentence. She got the distinct impression that she had died and been reincarnated, but in a totally new form. All of her senses, including scent, sight, and touch, had altered. She struggled for a long time to read or understand what was happening around her. Sharon Stone did not fully heal for 7 long years. A further devastating blow from life came at the very moment she was beginning to climb again. Sharon Stone, as she lay in her hospital bed, held on to the hope that her loved ones were still expecting her to come home. Despite all that had happened to her, she had faith that Phil Bronstein, her husband from 1998, would be there for her in her time of need. I disagree with her. Tragic news struck the second she got home, while she was still sick and feeble. Filing for divorce was Phil Bronstein. The impact was unbearable. What she was hearing was unbelievable to her. The guy she had trusted had gone on to another woman while she was relearning how to walk, talk, and write. And it was only the beginning. He went to court to get exclusive custody of their kid. Sharon, unable to understand how her husband, who had promised to love her no matter what, was suddenly driving her more and further into despair. The courtroom battle was too much for her frail frame. She couldn't face an army of attorneys because she was too sick and worn out to make it through the hearings. And she ended up losing at everything. Roan Joseph Bronstein, the boy she had battled so hard for, would mostly reside with Bronstein, according to the court's ruling. Limited visitation privileges were provided to Sharon. Her heart had broken. The judge questioned Roan, "Are you aware that your mother was in an adult-oriented film when they were in court?" The question cut deep into Sharon's soul. A video she had done 10 years before led to her being judged as unsuitable to be a mother. Her kid had been lost due to a tiny 16th of a second of insanity and primal impulse. In a world when nakedness on television had become commonplace, she couldn't believe she was still being penalized for an incident from her past. And it was only the beginning. The judge went on to say that she was being alarmingly concerned about Roan's health, bringing up the ridiculous allegation that she had proposed Botox injections for Roan's feet to eliminate foot odor. An unfounded accusation that Sharon strongly refuted. Unfortunately, the moment was past. She was unsuccessful in her custody fight in 2008. While Rohn stayed with Bronstein, Sharon found herself cut off from her own son's existence. In the span of a few years, the lady who had it all, her husband, her kid, and her family, had lost it all. However, the nightmare was far from ended. As her sorrow over her son's death continued to consume her, she found out her bank account was completely empty. She lost the $18 million she had worked her whole life to accumulate. Someone else's name was on her fridge, her phone, and everything else. Nothing remained for Sharon Stone. She was faced with an eternal fate: either rise to power and reclaim her lost glory or perish. Sharon Stone's career took a devastating hit when Hollywood ignored her when she lost custody of her son, which was the worst emotional blow of her life. Sharon, who was once a famous actress, became a byword for obscurity overnight. Hollywood isn't interested in you anymore. Little did she know that nobody was holding out hope for her to come back. She lost track of the avalanche of film proposals and lucrative contracts that had been piling up at her door. The filmmakers and producers who had formerly coveted her and referred to her as their creative inspiration no longer want any association with her. Additionally, she encountered icy, unrelenting rejections whenever she sought out fresh chances. You're not making money anymore. You're past the prime age of leading lady roles. Time for a new, younger face. Sharon was the target of media and peer mockery in addition to being refused chances. The tabloids made fun of her collapse, painting her as a failed sex icon and a celebrity whose star had gone downhill. Even worse, the few parts she did obtain were small, unremarkable parts that failed to catapult her career. In her desperation to maintain her relevance, she took any script that came her way, thus cementing her place among Hollywood's failures. Catwoman from 2004. An utter failure at the box office, panned by reviewers. Many found Sharon's wicked character to be weak and absurd. The 2006 installment of Basic Instinct was an epic flop despite the developers' best efforts to relive the series' golden days. Critics panned the picture for being stupid and out of date, and it went on to become a major failure that decade. Bobby, 2006, a critically acclaimed picture, but her little part failed to propel her to stardom. Nothing she did in the years that followed was commercially successful. Sharon Stone was no longer a celebrity, though she kept working on smaller films. Restoring my career is my first priority. Despite my best efforts, I have not yet resumed my acting profession, Sharon said in a Times interview. I long to resume my acting career, but this time I want to play strong, intelligent parts instead of weak, silly ones. Hollywood had rejected her despite her best efforts to regain her position in the industry. That I couldn't keep up my good job astounded me. I made every effort to perform to the best of my ability. In 2024, the article was published in The Guardian. However, Sharon Stone came to a realization after a long battle to regain her identity. Despite Hollywood's rejection, she would never give up on herself. She discovered a fresh direction in art rather than in Hollywood. She started showing her artwork in a gallery in San Francisco, demonstrating that her star power was independent of Hollywood. She also made it her mission to aid women, especially those who were oppressed or otherwise damaged by society. Sharon Stone transformed herself into an inspiration after being an ostracized actress. However resilient she grew, there remained an unquenchable longing. What I formerly had is something I really desire to regain. Real career is what I'm after. My life is something I long to get back. Sharon Stone, can she reignite her Hollywood career? We have not yet drafted that response. One thing is certain, though, her hope has persisted throughout. After a brief stint at the top of Hollywood, Sharon Stone fell into a dark hole of misery. Her health, her reputation, her loved ones, and her professional life were all shattered. However, she rose from the ashes of her mistakes and failures like a phoenix. She didn't try to win over Hollywood or make them feel sorry for her. Upon her own, she rebuilt. She fought for her life in the years following her stroke. Nobody lent her a hand. Everyone thought she couldn't return. Hollywood deserted. She refused to give up, even while everyone else ignored her. In her never-ending struggle for restitution, she gradually regained her ability to walk, talk, and write. It took 7 excruciating years, but she got back on her feet stronger than ever. However, Sharon Stone's rebirth served a purpose beyond her own. By adopting Quinn Kelly and Laird Vaughan, she was able to re-establish her family. She was a rock for 3 people after being a mother who had her kid taken from her. Neither Hollywood's approval nor the label of sex symbol were necessary for her self-definition anymore. She was more than just a mother, a fighter, and a survivor. The world was changed by Sharon Stone because of her prominence. She repurposed her voice for a higher purpose just when Hollywood was about to dump her. She raised more than $34 million for HIV/AIDS research and rose to prominence as a leading voice in the movement to end the epidemic. She championed the cause of the voiceless, constructed schools, and helped homeless children. However, there was a cost to sticking up for other people. Her film negotiations were ruined because she spoke out against HIV/AIDS. She was portrayed by Hollywood as tricky. This time, though, she could go on without their blessing. She had battled for her own life before. For the first time, she battled for a better world. Sharon Stone was formerly treated by Hollywood as a sex symbol until she was let go when her services were no longer required. Nonetheless, something was omitted. An emblem: she was never alone. She had fighting spirit. Sharon Stone had been reborn stronger, more purposeful, and more powerful than ever before. She no longer needed to recapture what had been lost. Sharon Stone has transcended her status as a sex icon of yesteryear and the Hollywood industry's rejection of her. Now 67 years old, she has broken free of the image that formerly characterized her and is back on television with a stronger, more authentic self. A new chapter of freedom, art, and genuine tranquility has opened for her after all the triumphs, tragedies, and defeats. What About Love, Sharon's 2024 return feature in which she played Linda Tarleton, was only the beginning of her career. She has 2 big productions coming out in 2025, Memoriam, as Vicky, and Nobody 2, as Lendina. Both are now in post-production. Sharon Stone's tenacity in the film industry is on full display in these ventures, which also demonstrate that Hollywood will not ignore her indefinitely. But she is no longer devoted entirely to acting. Over the past few years, painting has been increasingly important to her. She has had shows in Berlin, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, and her next show will be at Arapaces in Rome, one of the world's most famous art venues. Using a paintbrush today allows her to convey tales in a more meaningful, intimate, and freeing way than when she was using her body and emotions to make cinematic masterpieces. Both Sharon Stone's art and her public appearances reflect her rebirth. Her tremendous achievements to cinema were recognized at the 42nd Turin Film Festival in November 2024 with the Stella della Mole Award. This was more than simply a watershed moment in her professional journey. Her perseverance was clearly seen. Reclaiming her history, a lady who was previously turned down by Hollywood is now standing tall. Wearing a cape embellished with 3,000 silk organza flowers and a breathtaking crimson gown by designer Tony Ward, she mesmerized onlookers as she walked the red carpet. She was unconcerned about fads. She embodied the present. In January of 2025, just a few months later, Sharon made waves again with her stunning appearance at the 82nd Golden Globe Awards. She made a strong statement with her presence, not only with her clothes. You may still find Sharon Stone here. She remains radiant. A genuine legend, she is. Above all else, Sharon Stone has achieved inner peace. Through it all, she came to the realization that fame and love are not the keys to happiness. Dating is over for me. Being alone makes me joyful. No, it's not solitude. This is liberty. Because her life is full on its own, she has no longer any need for a guy to make her feel entire. The importance of spirituality as a compass and the strength of her belief in the hereafter has led her to conclude that her father, who passed away some time ago, is very much with her. According to Sharon Stone, there is more to the universe than meets the eye, and certain bonds are timeless and transcendental. A profound yet basic idea now guides her life. Choosing happiness is the key. It is essential that you do it daily. Luck isn't something she waits for. Keep thinking on what was. On a daily, incremental basis, she makes her own joy. Sharon Stone is more than just the sex icon who shocked the globe in the past. she is also a former Hollywood celebrity. She possesses the strength, resilience, and unbreakability like a resurrected phoenix. She went from being a sexual icon who could only play roles that were too provocative to a lady who tragically lost her job, her family, her health, and her place in the public eye. From a Hollywood abandoned queen to a fighter who, by sheer force of will, battled destiny. It was not the end for Sharon Stone, though. She didn't only make it through, she emerged even more resilient than before. Sharon Stone is no longer just associated with her role as the sultry diva of the 90s. But she is a symbol of strength and determination, of a will that will not give in to hardship. It was all for naught. But she got back up, took control of her life, and changed the ending to her own narrative. Not only is Sharon Stone's life story an inspiring account of a Hollywood actress, but it is also a narrative about overcoming adversity and being true to one's principles. Why are you unable to accomplish it if she was able to? Show your support for the enduring legends by sharing, and subscribing to their tales.